Hello, beautiful people. Today is 26th of August. My name is Sahil and welcome to the newspaper analysis. Now, friends, before taking the newspaper analysis, let's have a look on today's GS folder. So, today we'll take a quote from the Malcolm Forbes, who's the publisher of the Forbes magazine, and he has talked about diversity. He says, diversity is the art of thinking independently together. So guys, such idea of diversity directly collaborates with the idea of unity in diversity which has been given into the Mundak Upanishad. It provides that diversity is respecting the differences, maintaining the differences, but at the same time a kind of a collective identity also needs to be there. Now, into the GS paper number 2, the notion of secularism is directly based onto the diversity of religion. In GS paper number 1, society is based onto the diversity as well as into the ethics as well as essay. There could be much application of such a thing. So guys, you can utilize it into such kind of papers. So that's it. And now let's take the newspaper analysis. Now guys, first of all, let's have a look onto the brief highlights of the entire newspaper first. Now here we can see that the report of an RBI with respect to the Indian economy has been mentioned. So in that particular regard, we'll see certain important developments. Then guys, here you can see that the Supreme Court is asking that why Prashant Bhushan lawyer cannot give an apology with respect to the contempt of court case. So already with respect to the concept, judgments, way forward, etc., we had discussed this thing, and day-to-day development are not needed for your exam. Then guys, moving forward. Now here you can see that Delhi's air quality is still worst despite of the lockdown, and this thing is a matter of worry. However, you not need to go city wise specific details. Then guys, moving forward, then we can see that the regional news has been mentioned, not really important for our exam. Then guys, moving forward, thing has been continued. Now here the Virat aircraft carrier has been mentioned as it is being going to be scrapped. So guys, in this particular respect, some important things will be seen. Then guys, here you can see that Sholapur school case study has been mentioned. So with respect to our exam, we will use this as a reference. We'll see this thing. Then guys, we are into the editorial page. Now this first editorial talks about an idea of justice. A good idea has been given, can be utilized into the essay GS2 GS4. So in that respect, we'll see this thing. Then guys, this particular article mentions that the problems that Congress is facing right now. So guys, political article not at all important for our exam. Then guys, this particular article talks about the presence of terrorist camps into the North Africa as well as West Asia. It has been mentioned that where these camps are now making a stronghold. Guys, not important for our exam as a conceptual thing has not been mentioned. Then guys, this particular article talks about the crisis going on into the Kerala and how the government has failed to respond to this particular crisis. However, guys, much of substance with respect to the UPSC is not there. Then, guys, moving forward, here the magnets of manufacturing has been mentioned. So, with respect to the Chinese relocation, some important concepts has been given. Then, guys, this particular article mentions that how the Turkish Prime Minister Recep Erdogan, how his policy might not be good for the Muslim community. Guys, with respect to India, no mention of the repercussions have been given, not important for our exam. Then this particular article talks about an innovative idea as how the digital divide can be curbed. So in that respect, we'll see this thing. Then guys, moving forward, the regional news has been given, not important for our exam. Then guys, here we can see that finally the parliament is going to assemble into the monsoon session, and with the precautions the sitting will be started. However, more than this, no details are needed. Then guys, as we had seen that the contempt of court case against the Prashant Bhushan is going on, so a new bench will be constituted to hear specifically the 2009 contempt. However, no need to go into the specific details. Then moving forward, so coming to the news page, here we can see that the marriageable age for the girls, it is being said that they will be extended to 21 years. So in that particular respect, certain problems has been talked about. Then guys, here you can see that how the citizens have to face to receive their entitlements. A man has to carry his mother onto the back to receive the pension. So guys, this is an example of apathy by the bank administration. So guys, these are certain things which you don't have to do when you go into the services. Then the showcase page, not important for our exam. Then now coming to the world page, so US elections have been mentioned, not important for our paper. Then guys, onto the business page. Now a couple of important articles have been given. Now this particular article says that center will consider giving a second stimulus once the infection rates will go down. However, when it will come, we need to see the developments. Then with respect to the RBI's report, certain observations have been made here. Then guys, China has floated a BRICS 5G base. So Indian dilemma in this particular direction will be seen. Then ICICI's innovative way to provide farm credit has been given. So as a reference, we'll see this thing. Then guys, moving forward onto the sports page, nothing important has been given. So that's it. And now let's take the newspaper analysis in detail. Now, taking up the first news. So guys, this news pertains to the economy section, GS paper number 3. And there are quite a few articles throughout the paper, and they talk about the RBI's annual report which has been released recently. So certain observations have been made with respect to Indian economy, and if a question pertains to Indian economy is coming into your paper, you can utilize these references. So the name of report is the RBI annual report. Now guys, it has said that right now we are seeing the unprecedented retrenchment into the history. It means that economy is at such level, such crisis of economy are there that we have never seen that particular thing. Even after into the aftermath of 2009, 8-9 global slowdown, after 2016 demonetization also, such dire consequences onto the economy were not observed. Now guys, it has been said that right now the market conditions are marked by the lowest consumer confidence. A consumer is witnessing a kind of a economic pessimism. It means that he is into a kind of a impression that economy will not be going to the normal levels. And because of such a thing, what has happened? Only non-discretionary expenditures are being made. Non-discretionary expenditures are one on which you don't have control. For example, whatever the conditions, you will be spending some money for your basic needs. For example, your food, your clothing, your shelter, you will pay your electricity bill. But you will not go for consuming into the luxury items. You will not buy a new car. You might not buy a new mobile phone right now. And because of these particular things, the aggregate demand into the economy or the collective demand into the economy has went down. And if it will be down, obviously there will be no supply also, and when supply will not be there, there will be no employment generation, there will be no expansion of the plant and machinery, there will be no expansion into the manufacturing, and a kind of a vicious cycle will prevail. So how to break this vicious cycle? Otherwise the consequences could be very bad. Now guys, what to be done into this particular regard? So see, we'll take help of certain economic concepts. Right now we know that the GDP is going down. So what are the constituents of the GDP? So GDP is made up of private final consumption expenditure. It means the total expenditure everybody, you, me, are giving onto the consumption. Then it is made up of government final consumption expenditure. Then it is made up of investment by government as well as private, and then the net exports, that is the export minus import. When you add all these components, you get the GDP. Right now the RBI is saying that GDP is down. Why? Because the private sector is doing only the non-discretionary expenditure. So this particular component is down. Now if we want to maintain high GDP, this particular thing we can balance by this particular element, that is we need to enhance the government expenditure, government final consumption expenditure. How that will be enhanced? Government need to go into building of the infrastructure, government needs to invest into the SEZ corridors, need to bring other such kind of activities where people can be employed. And it has been said that once government expenditure will be increased, a kind of a pull will come and will bring the economy into a kind of a decent level, and then a kind of a confidence into the consumers will automatically come, and we will again reach to the conditions which were before the present crisis. So this is the prescription which has been given by the RBI. After that, it has also been said that not only the expenditure government needs to do, rather some deep-seated reforms are also needed to be made so that the private sector can also catch up side by side. What are these reforms? First of all, with respect to the production, the production market, we need to bring the reforms, for example, into the labor law for with respect to other kinds of such kind of thing is needed. Then into the financial sector, reform is needed so that banks are also inclined to give the cheap credit to the people. Now banks are having the problem, that is their NPAs are at such a high level that they are also apprehensive to give money to everybody. So such kind of reforms are needed. Then the legal architecture needs to be made such that manufacturing, all kind of new ventures, they are promoted rather than they are being discouraged. Then international competitiveness of India needs to be enhanced so that the demand of Indian goods can be enhanced and we can improve our export sector. So guys, these are certain policy prescriptions which have been given into the RBI's report. Please do use them into your answers, specifically the terminologies which have been mentioned. So that's it, and now we'll take the next news. Now friends, the next news pertains to the INS Virat, which government has decided that it will be dismantled. The aircraft carrier has been sold. Now guys, with respect to this particular thing, we'll look certain associated aspects. First of all, when we talk about INS Virat, it was the flagship aircraft carrier of India. Now flagship is one such kind of equipment which has the most importance, it is the most powerful, and it has a kind of a unique significance. Now guys, when we are talking about aircraft carriers, right now we are having one aircraft carrier. I will be coming on that particular thing. Before this, the aircraft carrier of India was this particular INS Virat, which is being now dismantled. Now guys, this particular aircraft was earlier, it was called as the HMS Hermes, and it has served the Royal Navy of UK from 1959 to 1984, and it belonged to the Centaur class of aircraft carriers. It was decommissioned by UK in 1984, and after that we purchased it from UK and we commissioned it in our navy, and it served from 1987 to 2017. In 2017, due to its age, it was decommissioned, and from 2017 to 2020, a large number of attempts were made that it was the flagship aircraft carrier of India, so it should not be dismantled, rather it should be preserved as a museum. But all those things have been failed, and now it has been sold for the dismantlement. Is it clear? Now guys, talking about some associated information. See, this INS Virat was not the first aircraft carrier, it was the flagship aircraft carrier. So what was the first aircraft carrier? So first aircraft carrier was INS Vikrant. Now INS Vikrant, it was also taken from the Royal Navy, that was the Navy of the UK, and earlier the INS Vikrant was called as HMS Hercules. It was being used from 1961 to 1997. And in 1997, this particular INS Vikrant was also decommissioned, and from then to 2012, it was preserved as a museum, but after that it has also been dismantled. So guys, this was the first one. Now this was the last one. Right now we are having the aircraft carrier, that is the INS Vikramaditya. Now INS Vikramaditya, you most will be knowing, this particular aircraft carrier we had taken from the Russia. Now this particular aircraft, originally it was called as the Baku, and it was built for the Soviet Navy, and it served them from 1987 to 1996. Now what has happened after that particular thing? We commissioned it in 2013, and right now it is the serving aircraft carrier for the Indian Navy, only one we are having which is operational. Then guys, we are also making one more aircraft carrier, that is the INS Vikrant. Now it is on to the trials and will be commissioned in 2021, and this is the first indigenous aircraft carrier which is being built by the Cochin shipyard. Is it clear? So this is all about the aircraft carriers. Now guys, they have a very important strategic element for preserving a country's maritime security. See, the flying range of the fighter jets, okay, fighter aircrafts, it is very much limited. Okay, they can't endlessly hover into the huge expanse of the ocean. So these aircraft carriers, they serve as a landing base, or and they can also they also serve as the fueling requirements of such kind of thing. So therefore in order to be a blue ocean navy, we need to have such aircraft carriers. So blue ocean navy is one which have presence in most of the oceans, in most of the seas. So this is the vision of India, that we need to be a blue ocean navy. Now guys, we had talked about the dismantlement of this particular aircraft carrier. So with respect to the dismantling industries, right now there are two biggest dismantling industries for the ships. One is in Chittagong, Bangladesh, and other is in Gujarat, that is in Alang. These are the Bangladesh one is the largest and the Gujarat one is the second largest. Now these kind of industries, why they are into the India? Because they are also the most poisonous kind of industries, and the pollution such as the asbestos, lead, heavy toxic metals, they are released when breaking the ship. So when we talk about the ship breaking industry, it also have certain disadvantages, that is pollution of the environment, pollution of the health. So guys, just a kind of a side fact, not directly related to this particular news item. Now that's it, we'll move to next. Now guys, here we can see a kind of an example, a kind of a case study which you can use as what could be the innovative measures to provide the education to the student during the time of lockdown, when the social distancing is to be kept in mind. Now guys, here the Sholapur model of Maharashtra has been mentioned. Now what has happened? This is the region which is facing the similar problems, that is the problem of digital divide. And in order to overcome that particular thing, the education administration, what it had done, it had painted the textbook lessons onto the walls into the neighborhood. So 300 such walls have been painted with the simplified text lessons, so that everybody, by abiding the social distancing, can take their lessons from there. Now this particular thing is very much innovative given the particular condition, and it will solve the problem of inclusiveness. Earlier only the people who were having the smartphone internet connection, they were able to take the education, but now everybody will be able to do that particular thing. Moreover guys, it also provides a kind of a permanent accessibility. So whenever the kind of accessibility is needed, you can go and can revise the things. Then there is no bar to others also. Even the ones who are not into the formal education, who have dropped the school, they can also access such kind of content, and it will create a kind of a nudging. Nudging means that it will basically it will harass the people that they should also, if possible, should go into the education. Moreover, a large number of valuable moral social lessons can also be given to the people by such kind of appeal. So guys, a very good innovative measure you can utilize into your answers. So that's it. Now we'll move to next. Now guys, we are into the editorial section, and this first editorial, it talks about the idea of justice. Now see, in GS paper number 2 as well as GS paper number 4 and into the essay, there can be huge application of the concepts which we'll be seeing here. Now first of all, before going into the idea of justice, what actually is not justice? So I had written certain situations here, and by the help of these situations, we'll understand that what actually is not justice. Now suppose you have a particular resource, and you just keep your resource to yourself, you doesn't share that resource. Is it justice? No, this is not justice. It can be called as self-preservation if you want to be very modest, and if you want to be very vocal, you can call it simply as a greed, that you want to keep it to your own self. It is just the self-interest that you are showing. Now going to the situation number B. If you have a resource and you are giving your resource, you are sharing with your resource the one which you like, or with your just your community. Is that a justice? No, that is not justice. It is a kind of a favoritism which is you are following. Favoritism, or you can call it as a nepotism if you are giving it only to your relatives. Then third situation, you are giving to somebody, but even when you need it. Now this is something more refined. Okay, you need, but still you are sharing it. Can now it called be as a justice? No, it is selective altruism. Altruism is a tendency where you want to give benefit to other even when you are suffering. So the altruism is a very good thing, but it's a selective altruism. Then the fourth situation, you are ready to share your resource with the such kind of person to whom you don't know, but you know one thing, that he or she need it more than you need. So right now, is it justice? Yes, this is justice. So if we give justice a definition, then what is justice? Justice is giving a person his or her due. What is due to him? So if I am having a commodity and other person needs him, so that is his due, I should give him. Such an idea has been talked about the justice into the article. Then guys, when we talk about justice, there could be two parameters or two implications of justice. It could be the legal justice, which we talk about into the punishment and all such kind of thing. Then there could be the social justice. And when talking about the social justice, one more idea of justice comes, that is the idea of the distributive justice. Such an idea has been given by large number of philosophers, and they say that distributive justice into the society will come when the distribution of the resources will take place without any favoritism, without any favor, without any inclination. That is the idea of the distributive justice. And such an idea of justice is always needed to be ethical. So if into the ethics also it is asked that suppose you are an administrator of a particular region and you want to distribute certain resources, it is a time of crisis, what will be your principle? So you should say that my principle will be the distributive justice. However, moving forward, so guys, this is a pretty good idea about the justice which we had taken. Now justice, in order to prevail, is dependent on to certain conditions. Now David Hume, the Scottish philosopher, he had said that only certain kind of a parameters or prerequisites are there for justice. Now, what are these prerequisites? He had said that justice depends on to the circumstance. Now, talking about the circumstance. So, there could be circumstances with respect to the resources. There could be a society where there are abundant resources. There could be a society where there is a no resources, extreme scarcity of resources. And then third type of society could be there when there is scarcity but modest scarcity. Clear? So where the justice, the idea of justice will be applicable. First type of society where there is abundance, there is no bothering, you don't even need to share, everybody is having enough, so here the idea of justice will not be relevant. Second type of society where no resources there, the extreme scarcity is there, here the justice can't simply exist because everybody will fight for their own survival, and when survival is there, people can't actually think about the justice. So therefore justice can only be applicable into the society where the modest resources are there. Is it clear? Because there a choice has to be made. Fine. Then there is one more condition. It said that there could be two type of societies. One society is where people are completely aloof, they are living alone. Other kind of society where they are organically linked, they are completely linked. So in both of these societies also justice will not prevail, will not be applicable actually. Why? Because the society where everybody is living aloof, there is nobody with which we share, there is nobody for whom we need to make a choice, and where everybody is living very organically, then also justice will be redundant, because you can't make a difference between yourself and between the other person. Take example of your family. Into a family, if there is only kind of if you have only one take example, you have only one chapati and there are four members of the family, you can't actually justify that I will eat this. You will share or you will not mind giving it to other. Why? Because you are organically linked. So into these kind of society also, the idea of justice as a principle might not be applicable. So where the idea comes where a kind of a society is into the moderation. People where there is kind of a people now, nor they are organically linked nor they are aloof, because here the choices will be coming with other persons who you might even not like. So what are two parameters for the principle of justice to be applicable? A society with a moderate scarcity, and second, where people are forced to deal the ones whom they don't love, with whom they don't have any connection. Here it will be seen whether a person is using the idea of justice or not. Now guys, here it has been said that though the conditions which we have talked, they are relevant, but they are the utopian condition. No society is made unto those conditions. Every society is actually having the moderate scarcity, as well as people they they have to deal with other peoples whom they don't love onto the day-to-day basis. So therefore these conditions are everywhere, and therefore justice is a universal virtue. Is that clear? Justice is a universal virtue applicable everywhere because actual conditions are of moderate scarcity and people to deal with the ones whom they don't love. So guys, that is the pretty fair, very good idea of justice which has been given. Now further, we had said that justice is giving a person a due. Now that due could be based on two notions, hierarchical notion and egalitarian notion. Now hierarchical notion, see, I'll explain. Suppose a society believes into the hierarchy. Into the hierarchy, if I happen to take a birth into one particular section, then because I have taken birth into that particular section, I will say that it is due to me that I should be the king. It is due to me that I should do this particular thing. It is due to me that I should have such kind of rights. Is it clear? For example, other kind of hierarchy is there could be the caste hierarchy. So simply if a person is born into a particular caste, it could be said that it is due to him that he should do this particular kind of work. So many a times what happens, the conversationist, they even justify the discrimination onto the, and they say that it is justice. On which notion they are doing it? Onto the hierarchical notion. They say that if a person belongs to a particular section, he is entitled to do that thing only. But such an idea is not fair. What is the fair idea of justice? The egalitarian notion. Now egalitarian notion depends, it has a premise. It believes that everybody has equal worth. There is no hierarchy. Everybody is having the equal moral worth. And therefore, justice, in order to provide them justice, there are certain parameters which are needed to be followed. Number one parameter, the distribution of resources should be onto the basis of need. Okay, the need of a teacher will be different, the need of a fighter will be different, the need of a person involving into the construction will be different. So everybody, according to need, the resources should be given. There is no hierarchy, there is no caste, there is no birth based discrimination. Then it has said that there will be natural talents that we need to recognize. Okay, everybody will have the natural talents, but into the very start, equal opportunity needs to be provided to everybody. Okay, provide them equal opportunity. People will have different talents, they will do different kind of hard works, and on that particular capacity, into the end, they might be having the different things. So that thing will come, but your consideration should be to provide the equal opportunities. So guys, this is certain good ideas about the justice have been provided into this particular article. So guys, very relevantly, you can use a lot of references into the essay as well as GS1, GS2. So that's it. And now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, coming to the next article. So this particular article talks about how to make India as a manufacturing magnet. Now here it has been said that, see, what is happening if we see the present condition, then there are large number of industries who are relocating. They are relocating from the countries such as South Korea, Japan, US. These companies from these countries, they are relocating from China to other kind of countries. They are relocating to Thailand, they are relocating to Vietnam, etc. Fine. Why they are relocating from China? There could be three reasons for that particular thing. Reason number one, there is a supply chain disruption into the China due to the present crisis which started from the China. Second reason is that there is a large number of geopolitical conflict which are going with the China of the countries such as US, entire Europe is into the conflict, etc. So therefore they don't want a kind of an uncertain environment. Third is that there are these the companies which have located into the China from so many long time. Actually China had gained dominance on certain of the key components which these companies are using, so they want to reduce their complete dependence onto the China. So these are the three reasons for which the companies are relocating from China and going to other countries. Here India happens to be a prospective candidate where the companies can come, and by that we can enhance the make in India, we can enhance the share of manufacturing in India. But guys, it has been said that before seeing whether India will be successful or not, we need to consider that what are the present conditions of India with respect to the manufacturing. So right now, if we talk about manufacturing, into the world manufacturing output, India is at the 6th position. and at the same time China is at the first position. So what ecosystem China can provide, can India provide that ecosystem? Can India absorb actually? Can India has the can India respond to the demands that will be posed? Clear. Second, it has been said that if we talk about manufacturing growth, since liberalization, India had seen a manufacturing growth of 7%, whereas China has seen a manufacturing growth of 10.68%. It means that already China is having certain kind of success. India did not had success till now. Will it be having into the times to come? Then thirdly, if we see the exportability of Indian goods, then into the exports China has a second rank after the entire European Union, and at the same time India is not even into the top 10 top exporting nations. So with respect to the exportability also, India is not a very good performer. So on all these parameters it has been said that India is not a good performer. Moreover, there are other challenges also with respect to India. First challenge, we are having a dire shortage of the infrastructure. There are the problems into the tax structure. Many times it happens to be discriminatory, it happens to be kind of it discourages. Then there is the problem of regulatory environment. Cost of credit is very high, workforce quality is not good. Then the labor laws are very stringent, low expenditure on research and development. FDI attraction, India doesn't attract much of the FDI, and the most important parameter is the land resource. Many a times there are problems into the land acquisition, and many of the prime projects have been struck due to the land acquisition and such kind of related barriers. So therefore guys, it has been further said that if we talk even about the India onto the real time basis, then the top manufacturing powerhouses of India are Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, UP and Karnataka. Now, why they are the manufacturing powerhouses? Simply because they have the large land areas and they can provide more land to the manufacturing industries. However, at the same time, there are other states also which have large land area, but still they are not the manufacturing powerhouses. For example, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, Rajasthan, Telangana, Odisha, Chhattisgarh and Bihar. Big land but no big manufacturing share. It shows that these states are basically they are not utilizing their potential of land resource. So therefore it has been said that right now it is required that a kind of a mission mode project needs to be started. Mode project with respect to the land liberalization, and their center government should provide an active hand holding. It has been said that state needs to evolve their plan as how they can make the land parcels available so that manufacturing industries find it more lucrative to come in India. Moreover, center needs to coordinate the state specific policies with respect to the land, and at the same time it has been said that electronic component manufacturing can be a great kind of a manufacturing niche for India, and in that particular thing a kind of a strategic group needs to be formed which should have representative from the center government, from the state government and the representatives of the industry, and by involving them we should resolve other kind of structural problems also. So guys, land as a resource has been talked into this particular article. Particularly, see, if we make a kind of a, if we go beyond this article, there could always be the four factors of production. There is the land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, it is the tendency which a company will be bringing by itself. Capital, a company will be bringing. Land and labor are there. So labor, which we have so much of labor and we have so much of cheap labor that even our labor, if not is not that much skilled, it could be taken care of by adequate training. But the land is a thing which can't be taken care of by any circumstance. So therefore land as a resource needs to be rectified at the first. So guys, all these things have been provided here. So that's it. And now we'll move to the next article. Now friends, the next article, this article is providing as how a kind of a digital divide can be reduced in our country. A very innovative measure has been suggested here. So what innovative measure has been suggested? Now, as the lockdown started, large number of corporates, particularly into the IT sector, but generally into all the kind of ecosystems, now they are preferring the work from home. and for that work from home, now they are giving the laptops to their employees. And when laptops are being given, the desktop which was earlier there, these desktops, they are being discarded. And now it has been said that before the lockdown, the 2 by third of our workforce, nearly 66% of workforce is working or is using the desktops. Now as the laptops are being replaced, so many desktops will become redundant. Even 1 million desktops have been replaced, and there are many more millions which have to be replaced. Now, if what we'll be doing about this thing, they might create a big electronic waste problem. Clear? Therefore, it has been suggested that these desktops should be donated to the schools because they have a very less digital infrastructure. Moreover, children's, they particularly are facing a digital divide, and because of lack of devices, they are not able to access the education. So it has been said that these desktops should be donated to such kind of institutions, to schools, to such kind of centers. Now guys, it will reduce the digital divide in India. Secondly, it will also help to meet the vision of the new education policy 2020, in which the technology has been identified as a core pillar. So that particular thing could be identified here. So therefore, it has been said that different stakeholders, for example, different NGOs, industry bodies, corporates, government, they need to come together and need to identify a solution that how this particular step can be taken. For example, there needs to be a change into the depreciation policy. So what happens usually, the capital assets, for example the computer, printer, etc., which are acquired, they depreciate at a constant rate, and after a couple of years they are discarded as they are deemed to be redundant. So it has been said that first of all, such a depreciation policy needs to be changed so that they are not discarded and they are actually given to the people who are more into the need. Then it has been said that there also is a need to identify the deserving institutes, deserving candidates, and for that thing the NGOs can help. Then what happens, that kind of we need to format these devices, we need to install the operating system, the basic applications which student will be needing for that particular thing. The technology parks, the software parks, the corporates, they will also need to assist. Then guys, after giving them devices, a continued maintenance also needs to be given. So for that particular thing also, some kind of a structure or some kind of a arrangement needs to be made. And finally, what happens, all these things can come from the corporate, clearances can come from the government, and voluntary services can come from the NGO. And when we are talking about the corporates, they can give their resources under the CSR route. So all these things are possible, and just by a kind of a determination, such a thing could be made. Moreover guys, it has been said that not only the mobile but other kind of redundant devices such as the mobile tabs, they can also be given, and not only to the schools but to the orphanages, shelter homes also they needs to be given. So guys, a kind of a very good innovative measure has been given here. So that's it, and now we'll take the next news. Now friends, this particular article talks about the issue of raising of the age of girls for the marriage. So earlier also we had discussed this particular article. Today we'll see one new dimension here. So if you are not aware with this particular thing, so just few days back onto the independence speech, the Prime Minister has said that a committee is underway to decide to increase the marriageable age. And a task force under the Ministry of Women and Child Development has even been made, and it is exploring this particular issue. Is it clear? Right now, guys, it has been said that the age will go to 21 years in place of 18. If we talk about the present law with respect to the minimum marriage of the girls, so there is Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006. According to this act, marriages between the girl and boy, where the girl is less than 18 years and the boy is less than 21 years, such kind of marriages will be invalid. Now guys, it has been said that under this particular act, even there are provisions to provide the punishment. And actually by increasing the age from 18 to 21 years for the girls, government is making a mistake. How it is making a mistake? So if we take the data from the 83 High Court and District Court judgments for the violation of the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act, then it will be found that into the 65% of the cases, the 65% of cases were pertaining to the elopement, where the girl and the boy, they eloped because they wanted to marry each other, but parents were not agree. In 65% of the judgments, in these circumstances, this particular legislation was applied. Then it has been said in 35% of cases where it was applied, half of the cases were those where the partners were not happy with the marriage, and in order to make the marriage nullified, they invoked such kind of act. Moreover, guys, it has been said that into the majority of the cases where the PCMA Act has been applied, it has been used mostly by the relatives of the girls only. So clearly, the particular act is not being used to bring the reforms. It is being used to punish the boy and girl if they want to marry at their own wishes, and it is being used for the other purposes. So guys, if it has been said that if we will increase the marriageable age, then what will happen? There will be even more extended 3-year time window where even more subjugation of the girls will happen. Now guys, one more data has been provided. It has been said that in 14% of the cases where the PSMA has been applied, only 14% cases were there where the child marriage prohibition officer used such a provision. So only these are the genuine cases. Others are basically non-genuine cases. So guys, it has been said that earlier also such kind of act was posing burden onto the others, particularly the family of the boy or the particular boy who wants to marry a girl onto their own wishes. And not only earlier PSMA was applied onto them, but other provisions such as the provisions of kidnapping, rape, POCSO, okay, these particular acts were also levied onto the people. So what happens? And a total of punishment of up to 20 years was given when the PCMA along with these provisions were used. However, into the genuine cases, parents, they can be given maximum punishment of the 2 years. And anyhow, for the parents, it is not being used. So it has been said that government should not go with increasing such kind of thing. Moreover, it has also been said that the age of consent needs to be increased. Now age of consent for sexual intercourse is 16 years. It needs to be increased to 18 years. Okay, so this is the meaningful reform which is needed rather than increasing the age of marriage for the girls. So such kind of thing has been provided into this particular article. There could be a huge possibility that such a direct question can be asked into the exam, so please do utilize it. So guys, that's all about this particular article. Now we'll move to next. Now guys, this particular article pertains to Indian dilemma. Yesterday we had discussed one article where we have talked about the Chinese dilemma. This is Indian dilemma. Now, you know that the relations between the China and India are not going good because of the conditions onto the LAC, and there are other ideological factors also. Now guys, just now what has happened? China has floated a BRICS innovation base. This BRICS innovation base, first of all, BRICS stand for Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. And China is saying that collectively we will be utilizing the 5G, we will exploiting the 5G for the artificial intelligence. Is it clear? And for fourth industrial revolution, internet of things and all these kind of things. And into this, BRICS countries will be the innovation base. Clear? So it is a kind of a union which China is making. And if we see into this union, India is also a partner. Okay, what has happened? India is only one country which is having the apprehensions. None of other countries are having apprehensions. For example, if we see, Russia had said that they are ready to cooperate with the Huawei for the 5G. Why? Because Russia and China have a common enemy, that is USA. So Russia is more than ready. After that, it has been said that South Africa, they had already using the Huawei to provide the 5G assistance to their telecom partners. And if we talk about Brazil, Brazil has allowed the trials. Final approval will be given into a meantime. But if we see the present condition, anyhow, the Huawei is providing the equipment to the majority of 4G telecom operators. So it is just logical that for 5G also the Huawei will be coming. So guys, a question comes that the one China has initiated, other three are also into the league. What about India? India, meanwhile, has imposed the ban onto the 59 Chinese apps. So, will India be a kind of a black sheep into the entire crowd? Will India not be joining, and will India be negating the prospects or the opportunities which will be coming with the 5G? So, in that particular direction, we need to think. However, guys, if I give you some additional point, so few days back we had seen a news where the Jio is actively working onto the 5G technology and had said that they are even ready to run it onto the trial basis. So for that particular thing, this could be hope for India, but we need to see this particular thing. Anyhow, the relations with the China might have a huge cost onto this particular front. So guys, with respect to the ideological war or the technological war or a kind of a war which we are into, the cold war which we are taking with the China, it will have repercussions, and this could be an example apart from the dependence onto the China with respect to the APIs, with respect to the capital goods, with respect to the other chemicals and all such kind of things. So that's it about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article can be utilized as a case study in an attempt where the institutional credit is being made available to the farmers. Now, if we talk about the farmers particularly and the agriculture, there is always a problem that they don't have access to the institutional credit, and therefore they need to resort from the money lenders. Now guys, what ICICI is now doing, ICICI will be using the satellite data imagery, and by the satellite data they will identify the credit worthiness of the farmer. They will see the land, the condition of the land, the irrigation pattern of the land, cropping pattern of the land, and on that particular thing they will identify that could be the credit worthiness, what could be the risk associated if we give the loan to the farmer. Now ICICI is the first bank which is taking such kind of initiative, and there are only few institutions into the entire world. So guys, this is a actually very good thing where the technology is being used into the economic sphere to bring the social as well as economic welfare for the farmer community. Now already the land verification is being done into the contactless manner, but the credit assessment used to take a long time, and therefore the farmers were not in a condition to get the timely access to the credit, and such a thing will now be resolved. It will also be helping in bringing the better financial inclusion in India, because financial inclusion also carries a kind of a component where the credit needs to be also provided. So guys, all these things will be solved by this particular thing and can be utilized as a very good case study into the GS paper number 3, financial inclusion, agriculture, credit accessibility and all these kind of things. So that's it friends, I hope you have understood them all, and now we'll go to the question section. Now friends, please pause the video and try to answer the question. So question number 1 is with respect to the DRDO. Please read the statement and identify the incorrect code. Question number 2 is with respect to the DNA fingerprinting. Please read the statement and identify the right code. Question number 3 is with respect to the Bonda tribes. Please read the statement and identify the correct code. Question number 4 is with respect to the recently mentioned Peacock Island. Please read the statement and identify the right code. And now the main question for today. It says that induced lockdown has proved that virtual education will be a norm for quite a long time. What could be innovative measures to make virtual education accessible to all? So this question pertains to GS paper number 2 and it is a 10 marker question. Please try to provide some innovative dimension. So that's it guys, I hope you're liking our discussion, and everyday PDF notes for the things that we have discussed are provided into our Telegram channel. The link has been given into the description. You can join it and you can download the PDF notes. So that's it, I hope you're liking it. Thank you so much.